let's talk about these three principles of paying yourself first, limiting work in progress, and of course we already addressed, but it's worth revisiting, resisting the allure of middling priorities. I like those three. Let's talk about how to operationalize them.
Sure. Yeah. And I think you're right. Right. We're getting at this question of like, what is the role of a technique or a method or a productivity system once you have begun a little bit to go through this process of kind of disenchantment with the lure of sort of total productivity and infinite capacity. Um, and yeah, I think that's the moment at which to use these kinds of techniques, right? It's once you're sort of no longer thinking that they're going to save your soul. They're just useful things to do, and specific ones like the ones you mentioned. I'll talk about. Have this are well they're well attuned to the job of kind of embracing limitation and finitude. They're not the kind of techniques that are going to lead you astray back onto that treadmill. So paying yourself first, very well known concept in personal finance that when you get paid, you should take some money out of your paycheck and put it into savings and investments right away. And then your regular expenses come out of what's left, rather than spending what you need to spend and hoping that there'll be some left over at the end, because there isn't, because we live up to our means. And the same thing is true of time. If you think that, if you take the approach of like clearing the decks, I'm going to get through all the stuff that I need to get through so that I get to this time when I can finally put real focused attention onto the things I care about, that's never going to happen for some of the reasons we've discussed. The decks will never be clear. So paying yourself first is just the act of taking that important thing and doing like at least a little bit on it now, first thing in the morning, right away. In other words, not trying to clear the space for it, but just claiming the time for it and learning to tolerate the anxiety of the fact that while you do that, more emails will be coming in, more things will be filling up the decks, asking for your attention. And this can be, it can be work related, but it could be something else. Like if there's a project you want to work on, a creative pursuit, a relationship you want to nurture, like it's just the acceptance that at some point you're going to have to do that in a present moment. And it's not going to feel like it's the right time. It's not going to feel like everything else is out of the way, because everything is never going to be out of the way. So you could operationalize that as, spending the first hour of the workday doing your most important priority, something like that. There are lots and lots of different ways to make that concrete. Limiting your work in progress is one of these methods that just acknowledges up front that your bandwidth is incredibly limited, that your time is incredibly limited, and says, oh, well, okay, now what? And there are, again, lots of ways to do this, but this is just the idea of setting an upper limit to the number of tasks or projects that you're going to allow to sort of be on your plate at once. So I illustrate this in the book using this idea of two to-do lists. This is an extremely simple way of doing this, right? You could, in principle, have two to-do lists. One, an open list where you put absolutely anything and everything that's on your plate. It could have like 400 items on it. The other is a closed list. It might only have 5 slots on it. And the rule is that you feed tasks from the long list to the short list until those 5 slots are full. And then you can't add any more until you've freed up a slot by completing one of those tasks. So it's just a sort of artificial bottleneck that you're placing on your workflow. And all that's happening here is you're taking a fact that is already true for all of us, which is that we can only give our attention to a handful of things on a given day and a given week. And you're just making it conscious, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to make all these other things wait outside the door until these things have been done. There are lots of other ways of implementing this. Anyone who's familiar with Kanban methods of project management will recognize the resonances here. It's just a way of making articulating and making conscious the limitations that we work with as humans. And the extraordinary thing is that when you do this, you actually find you do get more productive, right? You by being willing to make the other things wait, you do end up processing more tasks, more projects than if you didn't. And then yes, finally, the middling priorities idea was just that there are lots of things that really feel like they matter, and those are the ones you have to be aware of if they are not the ones that really matter the most, because the urge to try to find a way to make time for all of them and end up not doing any of them well is really strong.